welcome back to the Humanities, Twin the Humanities with Kane and Rince's, James Carter's E3 presentation bonanza. This time covering the PlayStation 5 reveal event. Now, things have gone a little bit wonky on these because we had planned to do another show before this, but the world kind of exploded into chaos, and it was very difficult to kind of get our heads around that, for one, to process it, and all of a sudden, even our favourite things started to seem a little bit trivial and somewhat more emotional. So that show is coming, and we're going to do a Destiny reveal show as well, and numerous shows afterwards. But yeah, so if you're wondering what's happened to all the stuff before this, we will get to it. But I'm joined, as usual, by Mr. Patrick Stardust.
Hello, everybody. Good evening. Hi. It's my show.
What were your excitement levels for this?
Do you know what? I don't think I was nearly as excited as I thought I was going to be. Because you know, usually with these shows, you're like, oh my god, yeah, it's time. It's because the Sony show is generally the one I will look forward to every year. But like, where the last couple have been a bit quieter, there's not been as much happening with the last couple. Like last year's was what, 4 games? Was that, if I remember rightly? Was the weird separate event outside of E3, and it kind of didn't really hit for us last year. So I would say I was going in like a solid 7 this year, whereas I'm usually popping and bouncing at a 9. But saying that, it was nice to be able to watch a PlayStation, E3 show at not 2 a.m.
Yes, indeed.
Which
James
is nice.
Carter.
Yeah.
James Carter. How were you in the run up to this? And was it nice to have Sony back? Not only the thought of them doing an event around this time, but also them packing out an event. This felt like almost like a classic Sony show, but in many ways almost what Microsoft have been doing the last number of E3s, where it's been bigger titles, third-party titles, peppered with indies, and just games.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a while since Sony pulled out the pie charts and the graphs and etc. But Microsoft, in Sony's absence from E3 last year, and Sony having the games, but maybe the way they presented them the year before, in the kind of like separate rooms moving between them, that was 2018. It felt strange. E3's been changing for a while, and the way Sony presents these things has been changing for a while, but it was kind of, in the run up to this, it's like, okay, Sony are stepping back into the void left by an E3 they weren't going to attend anyway. They were obviously going to have lots of information to give. The rug got pulled out from under that, with obviously lots and lots of events they were planning on sort of drip feeding a lot of this information out, just being cancelled. So yeah, it was a completely kind of blank page in terms of what Sony were going to do. We had a look at, obviously we discussed what Microsoft did with their kind of presentation from the homes of various executives, and we discussed where we felt that hit and where it maybe didn't hit so much, and it does feel like this is actually where things kicked off. You've mentioned the kind of odd bits and pieces we've had up to this point, even something that I know fired up your imagination a lot, like the Wholesome Direct, or like Destiny 2, the future of Destiny 2 presentation earlier this week. It's been bits here and there, and not necessarily everything coming together in one big event. And this presentation felt like, okay, let's get a big player on the board talking about not just the future of one game, not just the future of indie gaming or wholesome games, or however you want to put that. This is the future of gaming. This is what a generation that is going to start at the end of this year is going to look like. And yeah, excited. Absolutely excited. Not in the same way as for an E3, but absolutely in the same way as for a console reveal, because that's what this purported to be. So yeah.
If I can just cut in, I'm kind of happy. I know we're going to talk about these events a bit later as well. I'm really happy that they had already separated out like the current gen, like the Ghost of Tsushima and Last of Us stuff before this, because
Yeah.
those are the two games that would have taken up, half an hour of a, normal E3 showing, I think, by cutting those out. It allowed them just to focus on, hey, this is the next stuff show. Don't worry about now. We've already told you about now. This is what's next. And I like the focus, and it was just all about the one thing. And I appreciated that a lot, actually. I was happy with that.
Yeah.
Also, to kind of hop, skip, and a jump before my excitement stuff, to say that, Paddy, to then start the presentation with a Grand Theft Auto 5 PS4 trailer.
PS3
Yeah, me and Laura, because I watched this with Laura, we sat on the sofa and we were both sort of shrugging, what?
It does feel like we need to get this out of the way, which is the Rockstar logo is the first thing you see. I have watched 5 talks over of this presentation. I watched the presentation itself first time round. 5 times I have watched people catch their breath at a Rockstar logo coming up, and then the crescendo of disappointment when they realise it's GTA 5. There's no argument. GTA 5 is one of, if not the biggest game in the history of video games. It's right up there. And absolutely, Rockstar are the big cheese. They get to say to Sony, absolutely, we're going to make a deal with you. We want pride of place in your presentation. This is big, absolutely. And it also makes sense from Sony's point of view. Okay, this game represents a transition into the new. We put that up first, and then from then on, we literally put a text on the screen. Everything's PS5 now. But what a weird way to start off a reveal like this. It baffles me.
Me and Laura were saying, if this was on a stage show, we think it might have gotten a bit of a better reaction, possibly. Because, if, in our house particularly, we don't really play GTA, but on a stage, people would have gone, ooh, but I think maybe leading with the logo was the mistake. If they have just opened with that GTA 5 trailer, just open with that, I think the disappointment factor wouldn't have been so great, because, you see a logo and you go, and then
it's a
you think and you go,
possibility,
But don't you think that if it was on a live stage, you'd have gotten the at the Rockstar logo, and then you'd have gotten
Yeah.
It would have been quiet. Yeah.
I mean,
weird.
I know
to use PS4 footage as well, to not show what it looks like on the new machine was just, maybe they're not ready to show it, but very, very strange. Strange choice.
They've said that it's going to be expanded and modified and stuff. I'm
Expanded
wondering,
and enhanced. Not the first time that term's going to come up.
It's going to be interesting, because I think they're probably going to try and resell this again. But Rockstar have already said that Red Dead Redemption 2 will support smart delivery for Series X. And I know Red Dead Redemption 2 isn't getting any updates as far as we're aware for beyond the visual stuff. But how far is GTA 5 going to get expanded beyond visual stuff? Because Sony really haven't come out and said what they're doing with regards to if you previously owned the version of the game. That's kind of, if there are two elephants in the room, one of those elements of elephant is the whether you've owned the game before and if you'll own it again, and the other one obviously is the price. So
Yeah, no, definitely. That's going to come up probably several times during this. But I think the other big thing is, the other reason you do not want Last of Us 2 Ghost of Tsushima anywhere near this presentation is because the question becomes, you want me to buy Last of Us 2 at the end of this coming week as we record, or less than a week away as we record. Okay, are you then going to, January next year, November this year, sell me a PS5 copy? I imagine there's people at Sony saying we can't turn away the amount of money that represents from being able to get people to double dip. But and it's easier for Microsoft to say, no, we're going to do this because they're not selling their games in the same way Sony are. Their first party games all go into Game Pass. They're not looking for the windfall of 10, 20 million people going out and buying The Last of Us 2. But it also it seems like, as you say, an elephant in the room, not an element of, even a full elephant in the room of, are Sony just staying stum on this because they want to just have people pay twice for a game that Microsoft would let you just buy once and play on both?
I can't see them, like, I can't see the PS5 versions coming out if they do. Again, it's still a big if, really. Like, if with 4 months to go, they'd have said something, right? They'd have gone, by the way, we're also making it for the new machine as well. Like, they'd have said, they wouldn't not say it, because that's kind of scummy. Like,
I think the thing is with a lot of these the PlayStation 4 games coming to PC, it very much seems to me like the company either outsourcing or actually getting the work done to fit these games up for, you know, the modern day, to crisp them up, to speed them up, all that sort of stuff. And, you know, the likes of Horizon and Death Stranding and stuff are going to be there. But at what point are they going to go, right, here's a PS5 version of these? And at what point are people going to go, I've bought this?
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be a very interesting conversation, and the way that Sony phrased their wording is going to be interesting, because, you know, to sort of hop skip back again, I was very, very excited about the show, but there were a number of things that they haven't addressed, and the things that they did address in this show were, this to me is the most classic Sony show, like proper going back to what PlayStation really is about. Show that I've seen, and yet if there's anything I can particularly doubt them for last generation, it's the fact that they've been extremely anti-consumer. And when in taking the lead, you can obviously say they've got the right to do whatever they want, but there's a certain point where you start to look bad. And, you know, with regards to like their attitudes on Minecraft crossplay and Jim Ryan's views on backwards compatibility, you know, why would anybody want this? And there are certain things where you just went, you literally had everything, and all you needed to do was with people that were so satisfied with you, would just literally dot the I's and cross the T's.
And the answer is probably it was the PR response, because they didn't have that in place. They didn't have a solution for that, and we know from the GDC talk that PS4 backwards compatibility is on the PS5. We know that they're going to employ some kind of boost mode equivalent to what the PS4 Pro currently does. So arguably you'll be able to play The Last of Us 2 on PS5. It may just be a boosted PS4 copy. And that may be their equivalent of, well, there is a console for you, it's the Xbox 360. It may just be, well, if you bought that version, play that version. If you want the new version, pony up the cash. But it starts to look bad when Microsoft, who have an easier time making those decisions because they're behind, they have an easier time making those decisions because they're aiming for Game Pass and service, not the big numbers of sales that Sony expect to get from their first party. But it does look bad when Microsoft are saying, whether or not you have an Xbox Series X, if you buy Halo Infinite when it comes out, you will be able to play it on whatever Xbox you have at the best possible fidelity and performance that Xbox can offer, and when you upgrade your system, the game upgrades with it. It's such a nice thing to be able to say, and I get that that's only Microsoft first party, other people are pitching in, but piecemeal, that's up to the publisher, etc. It just is a neater way of putting it than having Bungie say, yes, Destiny 2 will do that, having Rockstar say, okay, GTA Online will be given free to all PlayStation 5. Well, it's like, okay, but maybe that should be a free-to-play game by now anyway. So maybe... And also, first time I saw that, I thought they meant GTA 5 will be given to everyone. But no. If you want the upgraded version of GTA 5... $60 please, or whatever it ends up being, you know, they will give GTA Online free because they make money hand over fist off that. So yeah, sure, absolutely.
I think the thing is with a lot of the snafus that have been made in the previous generation have all come from Jim Ryan. all of those responses have officially come from Jim Ryan, when really you need your PR to just go, well, we're obviously monitoring community responses and what's going on in the industry, and we really appreciate the feedback, and these conversations are ongoing, and do you know what I mean? Just basically say we're listening. That, and I know it's stock PR, but you don't say that you're worried about children because Minecraft is going to be available on all platforms, and there's a certain point where you look like the kid that's crying in the playground, the rich kid with the rich parents, because I don't know.
And with backwards compatibility, if the answer is we can't do that right now, we're not there, we'll look into it. I get that that's an unsatisfying answer because it makes you look technologically inferior, or like you haven't anticipated, you haven't been proactive. But if that's the truth, maybe try and at least lean towards the truth rather than our players don't want this, which is so easy to defeat when you see a bunch of people who have PlayStations say, I've had PlayStation since PlayStation 1, I'd like to be able to play some of those games on my system, please. You know, someone like you, Paddy, who's Sony Pony, no, but
you've still got
if you were leaning one way, PlayStation's your platform. How can anyone, hand on heart, say, no, our players don't want backwards compatibility? They demand to be able to have 4 different consoles so they can play all of their different games. It's ridiculous. It's patently ridiculous. But it's the PR answer that apparently Jim Ryan thinks is better, I guess. It's weird.
It's a strange one. I mean, my stance on the whole thing as well is like, I mean, I know we've talked a lot about, you know, getting the PS5 version of the PS4 game. Maybe I'm in the minority. I think most PS4 games look fine. Like, I like how current gen looks. You know, the next gen graphics we have seen so far, and some of the stuff we will talk about later, look all right, but not a massive step above what we've got.
Yeah,
I'm more than happy to put my PS4 disc in my PS5 and just play it with better load times. That's fine. I'm all right with that. I'm playing the best version I can because it's there. I don't see the need to take games that they've just spent donkey's years making and then making a better version of it when they've been, you know, targeting one console. This is me. I'd like the backwards compatibility. Blah, 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 blah. You know what I said.
Yeah.
If I've got the backwards compatibility, I'm not that arsed about the super shiny 4K megabucks. But then other people are, because Digital Foundry has ruined video games. So...
Yeah, and that's fair enough. If that people want to see what is the best possible, because the other answer to that is, well, okay, do it like Xbox are, because that means you don't need to upgrade to the new hardware. If you wanted to play Last of Us 3, you could still play it on PS4 if Sony took the attitude that Microsoft are. That's a ridiculous example, but you know what I mean. You could do it that way, but that's not what Sony want to do either. They want to encourage people to want the very best version, but they want people to pay for the privilege of having that.
But they did mention, I mean, Jim Ryan was after this, but they did mention that they sort of set the stock out with we are all about generational transitions.
Yeah.
And yet, as I understand it, a few of these games that were shown were actually PS4 and PS5.
Oh yes.
So it's an interesting thing to go to puff your chest out, and then you know the subtext underneath it.
And that's the other way to spin that. Of course, is, well, okay, if you care about the generational divide that much, well, stick to your guns. After this point, every Sony game comes out for PlayStation 5. No longer on PS4. That's, you know, and by the way, Last of Us 2 can be played backwards compatible on PS5, so we're not doing any PS5 upgrades.
I think
if you want to play it, put that.
It's the response to the Xbox stance. It's their, like, it's their, okay, you're doing it this way, we're doing it this way. Yeah. You know, they in response to the Xbox saying we are going to do the smart delivery, we're going to kind of, you know, make sure that you've got this generation where you can play it regardless what machine you're on. Whereas, you know, so to differentiate themselves, I think they said, you know, we are jumping higher. We are going to try and jump to the next step. That's what we're about this time. You know, but there'll be cross-gen stuff. Absolutely, some of these games are going to be out on all the machines. You know, there's no way they're not. I think that's just, again, it's probably just the PR, like, this is how we're differentiating ourselves from what's already out there, I see. Like, this is what makes us different.
I think the disappointing thing with that is that the reason hinted at and directly said for that is we want to be able to develop games for the best possible hardware that PlayStation has out there. We don't want those games to be hamstrung by having to straddle 2 different systems, 3 different systems if you include the Pro and the mid-gen kind of upgrades. That being the case, okay, Last of Us 2 was made for PS4, it's optimized for PS4. Don't upscale that, don't expand and enhance it. No, that game was made for PS4. It therefore doesn't make best use on PS5. Make it backwards compatible, absolutely, but don't try and in a year's time sell us the Game of the Year edition that is expanded and enhanced because it wasn't a PS5 game, so it doesn't make best use of the console. Is if I was being churlish, the line in the sand I would suggest they should then draw. Don't ask someone to try and upgrade a game that wasn't made for the system. Ask them to make something new that makes the best use of the system.
Well, that's what Bluepoint are for. So,
but yeah, I think
also
it is
Q-Lock if you're if you go in there. But yeah, it's weird, James. You'd erase that, but as is understood with Bloodborne getting a pretty standard remaster for PS5.
Lies.
It's
believe it when I see it.
Nothing if not consistent.
Lies.
But I think that's something that's worth pointing out as well. I have absolutely appreciated and ridiculed in almost equal measure Microsoft having world exclusive, console exclusive, platform exclusive, my daughter's 3rd birthday exclusive, whatever they put in front of every single game for the last 2 or 3 E3s and what are they called? The Xbox showcases in like November, December time. Forget the name of them.
Admittedly, with a man with a nice voice, the world exclusive. Because did you see that Gorilla thing earlier on where it was just like world exclusive? It was just like a bloke at the bus stop that was just like, "Can you say world exclusive into my phone?"
And I've heard and joined in with a lot of people kind of ridiculing that. It's like every single game that comes up, it's some kind of exclusive, but it's a timed exclusive. Does that really matter, etc.? And they haven't always been perfect in messaging whether something's timed exclusive or whether it's a full lifetime of the product exclusive. That's great, etc. But I had to go through this set of notes that I wrote, 2,000 words of notes, about 2,000 words notes, multiple times to try and identify which of these games are exclusives because it wasn't obvious from this conference. And since we found out that actually in many cases a lot of these games weren't listed as exclusives and are timed or console exclusives, even though it didn't say that they were, because they didn't have a PlayStation Studios logo. So I assumed, okay, that must be a game coming to every platform. They just happen to have it here. But no, some of these games are actually exclusive and PlayStation didn't shout about it, which is baffling. Why wouldn't you shout about that? My
favourite comment or little thing that was on the side of a game, and I can't remember which game it was for. It was just the wording genuinely made me laugh out loud because I just sort of laughed and then like stared because I was a little bit tired and just went, designed with the PS5 SSD in mind or with the PS5 in mind. It was just like, it's almost like, your partner finding something that you bought for your mistress. Just like, oh yeah, I had you in mind.
3 sizes too small.
Yeah. Who's PC? It's a long conversation. We then confusingly bounced into Spider-Man Miles Morales, which is coming out holiday 2020. There was uncertainty as to quite what it was.
Arguably still is some, frankly.
Yes. I've even had sort of questions from friends today. With regards to...
so is the Wii U a new console, or is it an expansion to the console, or is it an enhanced version of the console, or is it... it comes in black.
I bought Brain Training. What do you mean I need a DS to play it in? A real thing Laura heard at her work once.
So as far as I can tell, it's a little bit like infamous Second Son. Is it First
Light? Yep.
Where they got the city, but they're using a new character and they're wrapping a new story around that character.
Yeah.
but it's going to be done up for PS5, and it's going to be a standalone game in the same way as kind of Uncharted
Lost Legacy.
Yeah. It's a full product.
Similar to Far Cry Primal, that started out as potentially DLC for Far Cry 4, but then became a whole enough to be a game of its own. And there's been other examples as well of where something started out as DLC, but then grown into more. That's what happened with Lost Legacy and First Light, as I understand it, at some point along the way. And that's kind of what I assumed about this. But then waters got muddy.
I would say for me that I am a Spider-Man fan, definitely.
Yep.
But my heart is all over Into the Spider-Verse.
Yep.
And seeing Miles get his own game, especially if they're going to do a soundtrack in the way that they appeared to suggest in this sort of sneak peek, that's in line with Into the Spider-Verse. Honestly, all over that. I thought the actor they got playing Miles looked fantastic. And I wasn't so sure about the look of Peter Parker in the original. I kind of warmed to it, but I wasn't sure. But looking at Miles here, dang!
Yeah,
that looks great. He looks stylish. He looks great. But and Holiday 2020. This is the thing, right? If they're launching the console early November for Christmas, do they have a Spider-Man console in black?
No,
I think it's too early to have.
It's next year.
I think it's too early to have not just be selling the basic console. I'd love it. Don't get me wrong. I would love a black and red accented version of that console.
Could you imagine like the spray paint like logo on the top of it and having it on top of it would look so good.
From what the internet's guessed at, it's big enough you could spray paint it yourself. From what the internet's guessed at, it seems pretty large, so there's nothing to stop you.
It's got a couple of spray walls there.
Can't really miss it. But also, I mean, with the designs of the joypad, you can have a fairly sizable sort of Miles logo on the touchpad and. There's lots of room for design on that. On that pad.
Big white space. Absolutely. Yeah.
So
there's not lots of room for design on me. Be quiet.
James, I'll start with you then first. Where's your head at with this one?
As soon as I heard the voice, I was like, So I replayed Spider-Man through the DLC for the recent Cane and Rinse, and I went straight back in and played through it all again on the hardest difficulty on New Game Plus.
Wow.
I absolutely adored that game, absolutely so much. So as soon as I heard the voice, it was just like, that's Yuri Lowenthal. This is Spider-Man. Knew immediately what it was.
Didn't you like that handoff though as well?
Yeah.
Like, this is your time now, Miles, or whatever it was. I just thought it was a lovely transitional touch.
And also harking back, like literally quoting his father to him in the same way that as with Peter Parker we know the voice of Uncle Ben comes to him. It's Peter passing on that responsibility to Miles to honour what his dad stood for and to take on the mantle of being his hero, not emulating Peter. Go out and be your own hero. It's so powerful. And all the way through this, I was just like, yes. Because after playing through the original game and the DLC, it's clear that they put Miles in a position of, right, he's now in training. He's now going to be a part of the second game. And I assumed that what was going to happen was there's a lot of stuff Peter has to deal with coming out of that first game. Miles is going to be in training, and at some point during that first game, you would end up taking over as Miles, and you have to go and save Peter from what he's got himself into. That was what I imagined was going to happen. And part of me was like, oh, that means Miles doesn't really get his story. He's only ever living out part of Peter's story. And this being called Spider-Man Miles Morales, I'll get into the negative side of that in a second, or what I fear might be the negative, but to just be out there, nope, this is Miles. Is great. It's just lovely to know there is an experience here to be had that is just, this is Miles becoming a Spider-Man that not as many people are familiar with in terms of what he can do, in terms of who he is, where he comes from, what he's going to stand for, which will overlap with Peter quite a bit, but is going to be different, and that's really cool.
Mr. Stardust?
Yeah, I played Spidey very early this year or late last year. I can't remember. I think it just missed Game of the Year last year for us.
What is time?
I don't know anymore, man. What month is it? So yeah, I banged through it. I must say I really liked it. I did definitely not appreciate the endless side missions that did never seem to dry up, and every time you thought you've done, another set of 20 would unlock. You're like, I'm not doing those. You can't make me.
Did they pad it out a bit?
No, they controlled it out. It's very good.
They joy stuck it out, would you say?
Huh?
They joy stuck it out.
That's better. Yeah, I wasn't a fan of the side stuff, but I really enjoyed the base game. I thought it controlled beautifully. It was just a damn good game. And again, when it sort of twigged what was happening here, it's like, oh, is this DLC? What is this? And obviously there was a bit of confusion after it all transpired after the art. But I'm up for this, and the fact they've gone all in and said this is Spider-Man, Miles Morales, like that's it, like that's the title. That's classy. That's a good classy. They've not given it a stupid subtitle that makes no sense. They don't call it Spider-Man New Beginnings or something silly like that. It's just Spider-Man, Miles Morales. The world now knows who Miles is, particularly after Spider-Verse. You know, I would say he's definitely one of the lesser-known Spider-Men before Spider-Verse. Everyone knows who he is now. Trade on that. Make it sing and let him be the hero that he needs to be. I'm well up for this. The little short gameplay snippet we saw afterwards looked like they're sort of mixing in some of his unique powers, the invisibility and the shocky stuff. Like we got a little bit of flavour of that, so they're going to mix that up a little bit. All for this. I think this was great. I'm
a big fan of engines that work and that exist, that new games are built around. Like, you got Halo 3, and then they went and did Halo ODST with it. ODST was really different, really unusual, like smaller team working on it, but was super personal and a really standout game in that regard. I would, in the future, considering we've got all this extra fidelity and this extra grunt that the new machine can do, I would absolutely love, for them to take that New York that they've got and just full into the Spider-Verse it.
Yeah.
Just properly, like, go into the different art styles of the characters in there, build a story around it, even have that bridge kind of the next film and the first one. I love that look, and I think that with this new machine and those artists and programmers, I think they could do such a stellar job with it.
Yeah, absolutely. So how did this hit you overall, CJ?
I was very impressed and happy, and sort of, I loved that it hadn't leaked.
Yeah,
because so much of this hadn't, and it was I knew about a few of the things that were on here, but this just made me grin as soon as I saw the mask. At first, I was like, "Oh, what is that? Oh, that's cool." And I think this is going to be massive for that machine on Christmas time. Absolutely colossal. But I will throw a question out there that if the machine is in short supply and people want to play this game, is the game going to be more available than the machine is? Which should be an interesting thing. But,
we could be in a Breath of the Wild situation where more people have bought the game than have bought the console, and it's literally people buying it because they know they're going to play it as soon as they can get a Switch.
But this is a fab Christmas game as well. Because right, I'll aim this directly to you, James, because you have a similar love of Arkham Origins to me.
Yes, I do. So,
I love snowy games. I love Christmas games, and the fact that this seems to be not just a Miles Morales game, but a Miles Morales at Christmas game.
Walking through New York with the fur-lined jacket on. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Like snowy New York and frosty breath and snowstorms and all of that kind of stuff. Yeah. And my favourite aspect of Arkham Origins in that regard was kind of the slightly twisted Christmas songs.
Yeah, absolutely. That creepy edge to it all. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I think that they could really play into that with the soundtrack, like some really fantastic. If it was a soundtrack of songs, if it wasn't just a score, if it was a soundtrack of songs, if they had, say, the daytime stuff was the big, bright, score in itself, and then maybe the nighttime is when it was actual songs that kicked in.
Yeah.
That'd be a wonderful contrast. I'd love that.
It would. Yeah, I think that could really be something. I hope they lean into that, because it's coming. Holiday 2020 is what they've said. They know, presumably they have an idea of when the console is going to launch. They know they are right in that window of mid-November to the end of the year. Just go for it. That's when the game's coming out. Let it be a celebration of this console launch this year, around holiday time, around Thanksgiving, around various religious festivals through December, around New Year. Just let people sink into that. Absolutely.
I would say as well, given that the new machine has got a 4K Blu-ray drive, do a special edition with Into the Spider-Verse on 4K.
Yeah.
As like the second side of the steelbook, if you will, because that film is amazing, looks amazing, is continually rewatchable. But to give somebody not only a Spider-Man game or the new machine, but kind of see how lovely that film looks in 4K. I think to me that's a no-brainer. Yeah,
I think so. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so when I saw this and saw this title was Miles Morales, there was a pang of, not disappointment, but like wonder of, is this going to be like a First Light or Lost Legacy? That's what I've written in my notes. And that's not disappointment. I think a tight 10-hour campaign as Miles that cuts out some of the side mission stuff because it's his story, it's not about the whole city, etc. necessarily. Absolutely great. I could really go for that. But it was so... Like, I assumed that. They didn't say. It's like, okay, that's absolutely fine. And then Andy Robinson at VGC reports, oh no, we spoke to the EVP, Sony EVP, who said it's an enhancement of the original game with a substantial expansion. And it's like, okay, so you're only going to get this if you buy the essentially PS5 version of Spider-Man. I don't mind buying that game again. I don't need to. I've played it multiple times on PS4. But that's fine. I'll just buy it as if I was just buying it for this. And if I get to play a snappier, faster, shinier version of Spider-Man as well, fine. And then after that, Insomniac tweet to say, no, it's a standalone game. It's like, how can this be so difficult? How can this be... Like, I get it's not a numbered sequel. Other pang of slight concern, we have seen games, First Light being one of them, that have compartmentalized off to the side black protagonists when the main numbered sequels take white protagonists. I get Peter Parker is the protagonist of the mainline Spider-Man game. I'm really happy Miles gets his own expansion or own campaign, own experience, and isn't just a sidekick to Peter in 2. I really like that, but it does leave a little kind of... The ray of hope through it is, okay, is this just a springboard off to we're going to get a Spider-Man 2 and then we're going to get a Spider-Verse series with Miles or something? Could they really do that and sustain every 2 years alternating between 2 series with Spider? They'll crossover, etc. But could they do that? That sounds really cool to me, because then you get Miles in his own story. But I don't get how it could end up being so muddy where 24 hours after this reveal we still don't really know what this game is and whether it's only coming part and parcel of the original game or no, it is standalone. But what does that mean?
Isn't that one of the things that your PR is prepped for?
You would think that's a question people are going to ask. Yeah,
because this smacks of kind of Assassin's Creed Unity Ubisoft. It's just like foot in mouth syndrome constantly.
It's very weird. I imagine probably they will do a package deal of here's a PS4 back compatible version or full PS5 version of the original game with this, but maybe digitally you can get just Miles Morales as a standalone. That would make sense as well, and that's perfectly fine, obviously. It's just a bit weird that I kind of don't know what I'm getting from this. Because my impression in the last day or so is that it's the city itself is
done up and prettied up and stuff.
Yeah.
But the original Spider-Man isn't in there. Like it's just Miles' story, and I think that's exactly what they should do.
Yeah.
They shouldn't include the original game.
I think really alarm bells should have been going off when they were using Spider-Man as their test game. To like, hey, look at our load times. It's like 30 seconds.
That was a sign they'd got this
we should
engine
have gone,
running.
does it work on
But there's also the thing where they were just going like, this is Spider-Man PS4 on the new machine. It's like, it's going to run faster, isn't it? It's always going to run faster if it's Spider-Man PS4 on the new machine. But yeah, I can see how the heads up would be a test for where they were going to go on the new machine.
I could see them doing a new disc version of the original game, and you get Miles Morales bundled in, or you can just buy Miles Morales as its own game. So I can absolutely see that. I'm just all in for it. Like, it was just one of those where it's like, I'm so hyped about the thought of getting Miles's story, like a standalone, like this is Miles encapsulated in this game. To then have to wonder and scratch and look around and literally go to various websites and kind of run a train of run through a trail of, okay, who's said what now? Has it changed yet? Wake up one morning and it's different to what you thought it was the night before. It's weird.
Right, car
is
Gran
a star.
Right, I thought this looked really nice, like super super pretty. I quite like the footage where the camera in like the cockpit camera seemed a bit further back than you normally get cockpit cameras, and I quite liked that you could really see sort of both side windows and then the little sort of camera in the back of the car sort of thing. I really like that. A lot of this seemed to harken back to old school Gran Turismo. It seemed a bit more all-encompassing and like, hey everybody, look, Gran Turismo, rather than just appealing to the car enthusiasts. Although it then cut back to that very sort of weird menu with a little photograph of Sarah, and you're just thinking, have you seen Forza Horizon? And the introduction to the festival and all, they like, hey, come on, let's go. But it just seemed like, no, we've got a screen and we've got a picture of Sarah, and that just seemed like somebody should have just gone like, can we have a word?
Well, from what I can gather, like from what I could tell, like that was like, and I might be wrong on this, so I'm happy to be wrong, but from what I gather, that is like what the campaign menu of GT sort of used to look like. Or like a version of that, and then I think with the smaller ones, was it GT Sport is the one they've got out at the moment, where they have the kind of the big numbered releases, and they have like the prologue versions that are kind of the small versions that they put out because people can't wait 10 years for another GT game. They need to have something. So I think they're saying, look, it's back. We've got the campaign. We've got everything. You can have it. I thought this was a really strange one. Again, I'm glad Car was here, but much like I'll say about Dirt on the last show. You could have told me this was a PS4 game, and I would have believed you. I maybe it's my bad eyes. I can't genuinely see the difference between this and a trailer for a PS4 car game or a similar ilk sort of car game.
Yeah.
I mean, again, it's for me and Laura. We were chatting about this a little bit. It's the same thing as having GTA 5 at the start. Gran Turismo's huge. People that like Gran Turismo really like Gran Turismo. They buy a machine to play Gran Turismo. It's like the FIFA people.
And it's the only game that they play for a lot of those folks as well. Yeah,
exactly.
I agree.
Exactly. My soon-to-be brother-in-law, in fact, seems to only play Gran Turismo Sport these days. Like, it looks pretty. All I could hear in my head, though, was... Remember Matt Lees did his E3 in a nutshell videos for Video Gamer years ago? And all I could see when they were kind of doing those pans was just this little quiet voice going, I really fucking like cars. Oh, look at the leather. Oh, I like cars. It's all I could hear, and it ruined it a bit. And again, the pacing of the trailer was so weird. Like, it was like, here's the big flashy bit, and then we're going to cut to the menu, which I agree was weird, and then a photograph of Sarah, who looked very nice, but just a photograph of Sarah. Okay, cool. We're not going to utilise any processing power to make her move. Okay, fine. Cool. Just
we've got this massive SSD and this huge honking new machine, but Sarah.
Well, it's
Sarah,
the
320 by 320.
It's the SSD. It's the shots of Sarah drive. It's what it's for.
Yeah.
There's lots of shots of Sarah, but they can only show one at a time.
Is it possible in their engine they just can't render people.
They've never been able to render people, though, have they? To be fair,
there was some
never
people that
needed
were
to.
saying like
Yeah.
the stuff of like Jim Ryan and Herman Holst. They were looking and just going like, that shirt's not realistic.
Kill me.
Just like,
But they looked a little weird, didn't they? Like, I have a
No,
theory as to
they've-
why this is, but I literally wrote under intro from Kazunori Yamauchi on this game. Some of these people look like they've been digitally rendered or altered.
Good lord.
There was a weird.
Good
look.
lord, not you. I thought you were sensible.
Okay, I'm not.
Christ.
I'm not 5G cell towering this. I'm really not. I think what it is, these clearly were all shot from home or separately. They didn't have all these people in the same place recording them against the same back screen, green screen, etc. I think everyone had the same backdrop to them, which means they had to record themselves in front of whatever plain wall they had at home, or if they sent out a green screen or whatever. But their lighting can only have been set up by themselves, or different people had to do that. I think they put post-processing over the top when they were putting in the backdrop to make it all look uniform, put them framed the same, light them. So I think they've tried to artificially put lighting over.
oh, okay.
It has to be a post-processing thing, because more than once I looked at it and thought there's something slightly off about the way that person looks. That's not the way they normally look, and it's not the way a normal person looks.
Like motion blur on a modern telly. You're watching it, you're thinking, this looks weird, and I can't tell what... Like when you're at your mum and dad's house and they've got the telly on and you're looking at it, you're going, I don't know what's wrong with this telly, but it does not look right. Why is it all... they've got the motion blur! Dad, give me the controller.
So
Just give it to me. I will fix it.
Yeah, I definitely don't
say-
think they were digitally rendered, because that is more work than just flying a crew around the world privately
And
to go
if
and
they
film
were going to
everyone.
do that, why wouldn't they have Shuhei's head pop off and fly around and go, look what we can do with the PS5? Why would they do all this work?
Or if we've learned nothing else from this presentation, couldn't you get like a small dog fall into square, triangle, circle, X, and then reform Yuhei Yoshida before it?
I think it is just they did some they essentially photoshopped the people to make them all look consistent, and I think it did change the way that the light fell on them or whatever. It did just look a little bit weird in spots, and this one was the first one where I mentioned it, but it goes on throughout anyway.
I will say as well that I've always been puzzled this last number of years as to why Gran Turismo takes so long to come out, when literally over with Forza Horizon, they're Forza Motorsport. They're literally Forza Motorsport is every 2 years, and in between those there's a Forza Horizon.
Last year was the first time that didn't happen, and that's because of prep for the new console, presumably.
They all look super good.
Yeah.
And more to my taste are the Horizon games, but they
sure.
I like that they're doing stuff like right, we've got a film director, and he wants you to race this car as fast as you can around this village. He's going to talk to you as you drive it. Yeah, drive down here. We're going to have aliens coming in that field. Imagine that you're getting shot at. Right, take this corner. Right, drive towards the windmill. It's going to be a big spaceship. Drive towards it. I like that kind of. I like that level of humour. It's thinking outside of the box.
Taking the driving and changing the context every now and then. You can absolutely have your races, your point to point, your lap, etc. That all still works, but sometimes it's just nice to get in a monster truck and plough over fields for no good reason.
And I'm not saying that Gran Turismo should be that at all.
No, but
I wouldn't be adverse to them like doing a daft version in between the Gran Turismos, but they do take a tremendous amount of time to come out. And from from my point of view, I don't think that looks any better than a Forza Motorsport from 3 years ago.
And I
tell you what did it for me. After the bit where they showed the menu and they looked at the car, really look at the wheels. Ooh, look at this car that you're supposed to recognise. Oh, it's car.
Car porn.
Phoning in on Zoom. Car phoned in
porn,
on Zoom this time. Yeah. And then to show like a minute long or 30. God, it felt longer. one in-car shot,
Single
shot
lap,
from inside the car, driving around, and like, this is me personally. I don't play racing games in the cockpit. I like to see the car. I always play the outside the car view because I don't want to see, cool, I've got this cool racing game, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically just put some black tape on the screen, and I'm going to just use this little letterbox size bit, and that's the bit I'm going to be able to see.
It's akin to you putting your nose up to the telly, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm putting on a balaclava so I can't see the telly.
But it's that's why I kind of liked that. There was one point where they had a view which was almost kind of the issue you're describing there, which is my issues with cockpit stuff, but it was a bit further back, so you you had more of an idea where the bonnet of the car was and where the windows are, and you could see that little computer screen from behind you. It seemed a little more kind of tangible than just, I don't know, sometimes those bonnet views just feel like you've put one of those child's plastic steering wheels in front of like the window of the house and like your living room window. It just doesn't feel tangible. And how do I know when I'm taking the corner properly or when I'm right up to somebody? Do you know what I mean? I can kind of get that if I've got the car,
I think,
the third
the thing is, if it's supposed to be a car simulation or racing simulation as opposed to an arcade racer, well then the simulation is sitting inside a car. It's weird to sit inside a car and not see any of the car. Like for the cockpit view, because you can see what's on around you. You can see the dash. The dash looks like the car you are in. You can see the gloves and you can see the steering wheel, and I get that. But yeah, the hood mounted camera I never quite got. It's always one of those, if you want to change cameras in a racing game and it goes to the hood, it's like, well, I never want that one. Can we just take that out of rotation, please?
Are you saying you don't strap yourself to the hood of the car and just like...
Rarely do I take the position of the little winged angel on the front of the bonnet of the car and soar through the air with my arms.
Tom Hardy in Mad Max, witness me. I'm on the front of the car.
Let's move on to delightful climbs. Delightful climbs.
Yeah.
And probably the first time that it's shown what this machine can do.
Yeah.
And it's tied wonderfully into PlayStation Legacy and a series of games that, let's be fair, have always looked good on every machine that they've been on. And yet this was the first, Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, this was the first time where I kind of got a little idea of what the SSD was doing.
Yeah.
And the level of grunt that he was doing in between worlds, between portals. I like the Sunset Overdrive style sort of rail grinding.
No, I'm not letting you have that one. No. We've been grinding since PS2, boy.
Okay.
I'm not letting you have that one.
I mean,
I'm
also,
not allowed to talk about Xbox on this one. I'm not allowing it.
Also, it's the same company, so it's literally the same grinding tech. It doesn't really matter where it came from.
Slap those words out of your mouth.
Last seen on Sunset Overdrive.
And I like Sunset Overdrive, but I will slap those words out of your mouth. Respect.
But
yeah,
this looked superb.
Yeah.
I thought they gave they actually gave gameplay. There wasn't enough gameplay, and if that's like my criticism of the show, there wasn't enough gameplay. But they let it go, and you saw it look good. They gave an intimation of the story, and you got into that. You saw what the SSD was doing. You really got taken in with it. And then there was a guy from Insomniac, and there's some more gameplay.
Yeah.
It's like, thanks very much. This looks great.
Yeah.
This is the first one that I got up off the sofa. Literally,
I bet you did, yeah.
Like, it started and I thought, that bug looks very Ratchet and Clank. Like, it kind of creeping over the leaf. That looks really Ratchet and Clank. And then they appear. I literally threw my notebook down, stood up with my arms in the air. Laura will confirm this. Well, Laura?
You didn't have a notebook, but yes, you did have
Yeah.
Busted!
Whatever I had, I had
Smack
something
that
in my hand.
prep right out of your mouth.
But I got up and I was like, like, hands in the air, like, yes, this is my boy. I love if Metal Gear Solid are my bones and Dark Souls is my flesh, Ratchet and Clank is the blood underneath it.
Because I tipped you off that this was coming.
I still don't believe you.
Yeah, no, I think you were happy to believe me on that one.
I don't believe anything you say anymore.
Thanks. Even though, once again, the
Hashtag.
Yeah, there we go.
I don't know. I must have missed something.
But yeah, so tell your tale on this, because you've got history with this, and I'm very curious to see. You know, I know you've said about you think graphics on PS4 are fine, all this sort of stuff, but like I say, to me as an onlooker to this series, this looked better than the film the film that I saw a few years ago.
I wanted that film to be good, and it was just disappointing. And the fact that the remaster on the remake on PS4 of the first Ratchet and Clank used some of the framing of the film to set it up, wasn't a massive fan of that. Some of the changes I didn't like so much, but you know, it still played great because these games always play great.
I will say that the female character that kicked in, I instantly called Ratchet Girl Kylie.
Yes.
But yeah, tell tales of joy, because it's always nice when somebody gets a game that they love.
I mean, I've been on the Ratchet train since the first one. Like, it was one of the first demo discs I got, I think, for the PS2. I was like, what the hell's this? And I remember playing that demo like 7 or 8 times, like in a row. Like, yep, love it, have it, need it, want it, get it. I've pretty much gone through all of them at least once, some of them maybe 6 or 7 times. The PS2 ones in particular, I've gone through more times than I could probably count. Here's what I think. I like you say, I like visually, like just the standard running around looked pretty good. Like, oh, that's good. But as soon as they did that dimension warp, that bang, like, oh wow, everything's different. Like, you can't do that now. Like, that's what I want to see. That's the kind of the big look at this. Boom, we're somewhere else. Boom, we're somewhere else. Boom, we're somewhere else. Like, can we do that now? That's not a cutscene. That's the game. A big fan, as the nice man at the end of the video was. Look at all the specular affections on Clank. Oh, isn't that nice?
Yeah, I like the flaws as well.
Me and Laura both pissed ourselves at the same time. We just had a brief moment of silence and just burst out laughing because it was adorable. But I'm into it. I agree.
It's weird because it's the most stylized look of all of them, and I like the fact that you and I have had conversations about things going into new generations, and a lot of the lighting engines and ray tracing all going realistic and like planing out all of the very specific colours and hues that you used to, the very stylized stuff that you got previously. And this had a mixture of, clearly the ray tracing was in effect on like the floors and Ratchet's chin and all that kind of stuff, and it looked great, but it wasn't distracting, and the look of it was still uniform to that wonderful stylized look of yesteryear, and I like that. I like that middle ground.
Yeah. Do you know what most excites me as well? It's not even the graphical stuff. Like, as the Ratchet and Clank nerd of the show, like, I was watching those trailers, that video, thinking, oh, I know that, I know that, I know that. I'm excited that they're going to start picking through some of the history and some of the worlds and some of the other games. Like, the pirate ship that he ends up on, the pirates in there are from the PS3 smaller download only. I think there was a disc, but it was like a much smaller
Quest for Booty.
Quest for Booty. Yeah, Quest for Booty. Which means we might get Rusty Pete on PlayStation 5. Oh my god, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
I like that you could see like stuff in the background that I recognise. Dr. Nefarious is back, which means all I'm going to be doing is yelling Lawrence at the baby for the next year. I'm already in trouble. I haven't even done it yet. The enemies we saw running around the terminal, the sand sharks, they're from the first game. So are the metal, the dogs that were running down the corridor with the big metal chunks in that sort of the longer sort of video of it. They're from the first game as well. They're from Metropolis. They're just the angry robot dogs looking exactly like they're supposed to. Like, yeah, play in the space. And there's a gun that is a sprinkler. It's a turret gun that makes lovely flowers and turns the enemies into flowers.
I like that it's not going to be kind of, I mean, we're talking about the generational leaps, but previously, if you were going into a portal to another world, it would be like loading, waity, and there it is. But there's something about the kind of like, and you being sort of thrown into that other dimension that's just that. I didn't get tired of that when I was watching your trailer, even the points where they were kind of stopping the scene and pausing it so you could fight people and then shattering that and speeding up and stuff. It just looked like something that I could play and just grin like a loon at.
Yeah.
And I'm glad they've done it. I'm glad they're looking into the history in this way and just going, do you know what? Give people joy. But Insomniac have clearly... I don't know if there was something where they were saying, like, what could you do that really showed off the SSD, or as to whether that was a result of them just sort of workshopping what they could do, where the story would go, all those things going on at the same time. But yeah, it's a bit lovely, isn't it?
Yeah,
I'm going to throw a small thing that I think maybe this is... I'm very likely wrong on this, but when they were barreling through the world, when he was riding the dragon through the city, and they're like, where the hell is this? I don't know. Where are we?
Oh, God, that was really pretty,
right?
Well.
Do you know what I thought that might be? I thought that might have been the city from Jak 2. Maybe.
I mean, it would make sense
Maybe.
if they're going through different rifts. Yeah, could you? What other Sony universes could you end up in?
I'm so wrong.
Awesome.
I have no doubt that I am wrong. But the first thing I thought was, oh my god, is that whatever the city was
something
called?
With that.
Yeah, New Haven or something. Whatever. Jak 2 World. Like, oh, there's a gun that's a sprinkler.
Yeah, but Insomniac have always been good at the guns. If there's anything that I've really wanted back is of theirs, it's Resistance, and the guns in Resistance were just stupendous as well. And I think that series kind of veered off track somewhat, but yeah, I just thought this was superb.
This is the one where I looked at Laura and I said, "We're getting a PS5 then."
Yeah, and it almost... I don't want to disparage the game that took the place of this in the PS4 launch lineup, but I was watching this thinking, look at all of the particles, all of the debris, and they've got the rift portals, and they've got teleportation stuff. This game completely removes the need for a knack to show off the ability of this console, because it does it all, and does it in a way that, with characters that people have a long history with characters out of Sony's kind of mascots that are the ones I feel warmest about, absolutely. Brings so aside from I really enjoyed the remake, the 2016 remake. As far as I'm aware, that's the only new Ratchet and Clank we had last gen, and it was a remake. So we've gone a generation without Ratchet and Clank, and to have them come back like this and completely steal the need for knack, completely eat Bioshock Infinite's lunch on dynamic portal shifting around the combat environment, just like done. You've completely been shown up by a kid's cartoon, essentially, and that's not disparagement. That is, here's the imagination, and yes, they've got the technical chops to back it up.
It's kind of nice to see, like say, Sony not only going back to like PS1 era Sony, where anything could happen, but it's nice to see them breaking the cycle of overly serious third-person action game. Yeah. I'm delighted to see that there's going to be a bit more in the mix for this gen.
I think in this thing as well, like I'd noticed this about 20 minutes in, it took ages before there was a first-person man with gun game. Ages. Dead impressed by that.
Yep.
Show me the mix. Don't just show it again, because sometimes these conferences can devolve into, here is man with gun. Here is other companies' man with gun. Now we're going to show you FIFA. Before we get on to the next thing, here's Company 3's man with gun game. We think you're really going to like this one. This man's got a gun. Like
and
this
now
was
car.
And car.
No, absolutely. It's nice to see a PlayStation mascot from the PS1 cartoony mascot era come back out and kind of break the mold a little bit of the Nathan Drakes and the Kratoses, and the Aloys, who absolutely fantastic, but that they don't all have to be hyper realistic. World is ending, I am going to go out and no, just let's go for something that's fun in and of itself. And you can have the bizarre story and the over the top universe ending stuff and Dr. Nefarious with his plans, etc., but you can also have a topiary sprinkler as a weapon in a game that just boggles your mind in the same way that the disco ball gun did back when that happened.
I love that gun. It worked on bosses, James. It worked on bosses. It was so good.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, this was cool.
So we then had Project Athia, designed for PS5. Luminous Productions, which is Hajime Tabata, who rescued Final Fantasy 15
Yep.
and did Final Fantasy, was it Project Zero or?
And then spun off their own little kind of their own little group.
When he said he was leaving Square to form his own company, I didn't think it would be an offshoot of Square, I must admit. So that caught me off guard. But it's turned out in the last number of days that Gary Whitta's involved with this as well.
He's lead writer in a group of, I think I heard someone say about 8 writers have been involved in this. I have to say, when I saw Square Enix and the way that this opened with text over the screen and kind of bits and pieces saying, in a world not her own, where resolve will be tested, truths will be questioned, and devotions will be doubted, she will rise. I did honestly think, is this going to be a hint at Final Fantasy 16? But that doesn't seem to be the case, because Luminous Productions are doing something different. Gary Whitta and a team of writers involved to, I hope, create their own unique universe here. And also easy to mistake this, I think, in some way for the Unreal Engine demo game that we saw, in the way that kind of played out. Obviously not the same thing, but it comes from a similar place in terms of the footage we saw and what was going on. But yeah, really cool.
Somebody was actually saying as well that they wonder if this is tying into Project Witch that Square Enix showed off a long time ago. That I think it was a big Final Fantasy fan that sort of said that they wondered if that was tied in. So you may sort of have a bit of a nod and a wink there. But the brief stuff that they showed, I thought looked incredibly pretty, incredibly good. And like I say, with that talent behind it, with Gary Whitta leading the writers, and Tabata is very, very underrated. The fact that he got 15 out of the door and shipped, I think, in any case, was a bit of a minor miracle. So, James, thoughts?
Interested in this. It, at the end, said designed exclusively for PS5, and has been confirmed this is on consoles exclusive to PS5, which means we may well see a PC version, but
this is why we invite you, James. This is the research that we.
I had to go through lists and lists to find out what was exclusive and what's not. So this one is a console exclusive for PS5, interesting to see Sony going out and making deals with the likes of Square Enix, who have a vested interest and have shown with Nier Automata that started out on PS4. They moved that over to Xbox One. These companies still are up for, certainly with Sony it looks like at the moment, making deals for exclusivity on consoles. They seem to be happy for, whether it's just during a launch period, we'll see in the future, but at the moment they seem to be happy to say, okay, we can put it on PC and PS5, that'll do for us at the moment. That gives us a big enough audience. Obviously I would prefer to see everything on everything if possible. Whether this allows this game to make better use of the PlayStation 5 than it would if it was across another extra platform, I don't know. But yeah, it's something new, and I think following on from Ratchet and Clank saying it's nice to see them back, it's also nice to see new stuff in amongst here, and not all of it indie stuff either. Amongst AAA publishers as well.
I definitely saw the visual like cues between this and 15. Like when we got the bit when she was actually running and jumping, and like that coat cape thing. By the way, nice coat. I love a coat. You'll know this about me. I like a coat, but like it looked very 15. Like that looks like Final Fantasy. Like,
I think a few people were saying the surrounding sort of area looked like squares, like 15.
100%. 100%. Yeah, I saw the visual clicks, like it looked like its own thing. To follow on what you just said there, James, actually, I've had a thought about companies being okay with making these exclusives.
Yeah.
Would you maybe pose, again, I could be blowing smoke here, but if you get approached by Sony and says, do you want to make a game just for the PS5 for us? And you go, yeah, all right, cool. You've got to make... You make one game for the PS5. You haven't got around making other versions. You make the one version, maybe the PC version, but you make one version. If you're making your game multi-platform, not only do you have to make full just for the PS5, but because of Microsoft's commitment to having this cross-generational couple of period of however long it'll be.
Yeah.
If you make a Series X, you also have to make an Xbox One version of that same game as well. Do you think they've seen that and gone, actually, we can just use the big machine and push as hard as we want? Maybe. Again, I could be blowing smoke here. It could just be Sony throwing bags of money at them.
I think it is. I think any exclusive is a company sort of covering the loss that they'd have from
whether it's a marketing deal or whatever.
But they're being told, hey, we can focus rather than having to make 4 or 5 different versions. We can just focus and make one.
The thing that you're saying about the Xbox ecosystem, if you will, only applies to first-party games. That the medium that we saw on the Xbox stage is Series X only. That isn't going backwards. So it's only Microsoft saying, oh, for the next 2 years, Halo Infinite.
Sure?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, they haven't
talked about
mandated.
I'm sure they talked about smart delivery on that one.
No, third-party studios can do whatever they want.
Oh, I see. Okay.
But
So Square wouldn't have had to have put this on Xbox One in order to get it onto Xbox Series X. That's not to say Microsoft might not have encouraged them to, but also the other thing we know, because we've heard it several times, is Microsoft have gone out of their way to take on some of the technological burden of getting things ported to Xbox and getting older games to work on Xbox One and Xbox One X, and they're
taking on all of it.
Exactly.
So all companies need to do is just sort of say, "Oh, we'd like that there," and it will be there. Whereas PS5, it's down to the companies themselves to figure out how it works.
Oh, well, it was just a thought, like I say, just because you mentioned it and it kind of twicked in.
Yeah. No, because I looked into it after our last conversation because I was wondering with regards to Bloober Team, who've kind of struggled with some of the technical limitations of getting things running super smoothly on this generation of console. So I can see why they'd be focusing on the new hardware pretty heavily, especially with what was the Rutger Hauer game that they're tarting on? Observer, which is a lovely little game, but man, that chugged even
chugs on
X. On X, So,
I had problems,
I thought the dragon looked really cool as well.
Yeah, it did.
And that little fiery dog thing. If they're real-time graphics, oh boy, they look pretty.
Yeah.
Big fan.
It also seems like Square getting back to that degree of Final Fantasy type artwork where you looked at it and you just went, cool.
Yeah.
And I think for years and years you'd look at Square Enix just making technological leaps and doing things that people couldn't do before. The design work was through the roof. It kind of echoed that era of Square Enix coming back, that level of special and unusual. And I like that.
Yeah, a sense of wonder in both the technology and the artwork that they put together, definitely.
100%,
Yeah, for sure.
So we then had Stray and a cyberpunk cat. James?
So this is Annapurna Interactive. If their logo pops up in front of any trailer, my ears prick up and I start to pay attention. I just don't think they've missed almost at all in any of the games of theirs that I've played. They're publishing, Blue 12 Studio developing. Starts out with droids moving around what looks to be a relatively we've seen this kind of dystopic future city before. There's RIP humans written on the wall, loads of droids around the place acting as humans would. They've clearly taken the place of humans. That's not to say that they're responsible for humans not being around, but they have fallen into the role of humans in this world. And then a cat starts walking around and you think, hang on, am I going to be playing am I cat? and sure enough, until the game's name and logo popped up on the screen, I wasn't 100% sure, because you kind of assume you're going to occupy the role of the humanoid, and the droids are all bipedal. You see them getting haircuts and doing human things. You assume you're going to be doing the human things, but you're not. You're doing the cat things.
So you would ask Annapurna, am I Purra? Oh, come on. Give me something.
CJ, what did you
Well,
think?
no,
Oh,
we've
you
been
smell. You're all terrible.
we've been playing Monster Hunter. All of the cat puns have been soared in that game. So, no, Paddy, go on.
Yeah,
Tell
no,
us.
I thought this looked cool. Like, again, it's got, as you say, that sort of all the humans are gone, and the robots look like bored.
Yeah.
Like, they just sort of like the one that got a haircut.
Yeah.
That was just getting like its head screwed a little bit. I laughed at that a lot. I thought that was a really nice touch. Like, obviously, this does like smell of, damn, this game's going to be sad. Like, it's going to be sad. There's going to be a really sad bit in this somewhere. And the cat's going to, I don't know, it's a techno cat. I'm not sure why it's a techno cat. But there's not much you can gather from, what a game will play like. We didn't really see much gameplay per se. We just sort of saw a cat wander about a bit. I mean, I'm still interested to see what it becomes. I wish I could, say more at the minute, but I just thought it looked cute. Again, Laura's ears pricked up a little bit on this as well. Like, oh, that's cool. Like, yeah, just wander about and look at the bored robots.
I did wonder if this was going to punch a few Tokyo Jungle buttons with you. Because it could well be like a variation on a theme on that like maybe this is the city, and you're going to go and do all these kind of little fetch quests. Because I presume that cat's backpack had a camera in it or something. But maybe you had to then go outside the city, and then it got a little bit more dangerous, and that's where the Tokyo Jungle thing kicked in for me, and I was like, oh, I wonder if Paddy's kind of thinking along those lines. Because you loved that game to pieces.
Tokyo Jungle was hilarious. It was just slapstick mental.
But also
in a bush and
that's
beat up a tiger.
But that's pulling on weird Sony, and I like weird Sony. So yeah, this made me happy.
I like Tokyo Jungle so much that I got the Vita version of it, like the PlayStation Minis version, which is like grid based, but it's the same basic idea. It's really good. Like, give me more of Tokyo. I played so much Tokyo Jungle. Me and Laura would play it co-op, and it was a riot. It was so much fun. You'd be creeping through like Tokyo, like, we've just got to find just a few more deers. If we can just eat these, our little baby dogs can eat a few more deers. We'll grow. And oh god, there's a crocodile. And then you died. It was brilliant.
So I've essentially just made you more interested in the cat game by suggesting that might be a thing. It seems,
if they can add in comedy shagging, I'm in.
There we go. Cat shagging is what the ginger wants.
This one console exclusive to PlayStation as well.
All right. Cool.
No hint of that in the show. I've written PS4 and PS5 query. I don't know if that's because I found that out and I've just put a query, or whether I wondered. But will be coming to PC, indie game from Annapurna, you expect that. But it's starting to show Sony, much like they did at the beginning of PS4, are budgeting under Shuhei to go out and find indie games and secure console exclusivity.
There was a thing that I saw afterwards where they were saying something like the PS, I'm sure it's like PS Studio logo is kind of a console exclusive, but it's kind of essentially PlayStation investing in the development of a game, and then it comes under that sort of comes into that bracket, but it's still a touch vague.
So I think wherever you saw the PlayStation Studios, their new logo that they're using for PlayStation 5 onwards, wherever you saw that's Sony making that game. It may be in conjunction, like with a Housemarque or whoever we're coming on to. This one didn't have a PlayStation Studios logo, and in those cases it was really vague as to whether this is a game that's coming everywhere that Sony just wanted to highlight, or whether it's a game that Sony have locked down some kind of exclusivity. And more than you would initially have thought coming out of this presentation, actually Sony have gone and got some exclusivity along the lines of Firewatch and Tacoma, where those were indie games and they both went different ways because Xbox courted one and PlayStation courted the other. That happened at the beginning of the generation with Sony and just completely fell off. Like, once Sony realised they'd got dominance in this generation in terms of sales, in terms of impact, it was kind of every indie wants to be on our system anyway, so we can just not bother again. And that's my harsh telling of the situation. I understand the business reasons, but they've put Shuhei Yoshida in charge of developing, culturing, nurturing indies on behalf of Sony, which is a role that he wants. It's a role that he's beautifully suited to by all accounts, and I hope they stick with it beyond just the foundational couple of years for the PlayStation 5, because I wouldn't have known that Stray was not coming to Xbox. I would have assumed it was because it's an indie, and the past 5+ years Sony have just not really seemed to care about locking down exclusivity, but they are, and I hope it works for Annapurna and for Blue 12 and for Stray and any of the other games. I really do, because it'll get a light like this light put on this game that looks great, but I would not have known existed unless I saw it at this event.
I mean, I know we've had a good old laugh between the three of us the last number of years at world exclusive, console launch exclusive, first on Xbox, all this kind of stuff.
First in Belgium.
Yeah, I guess in the aftermath of what James was saying, and this confusion, at least as daft as that was, at least you kind of knew where you stood with it, and it wasn't. It wasn't sort of the company masking it or hiding anything. And in this case, James is right that it's to their advantage to wave that flag, and they didn't.
It's
and
weird.
To mire that in a little bit of confusion seems kind of wonky.
Strange.
Well, I mean, maybe the other take on this is that what they wanted to say is these are all going to be on a PlayStation 5. Why do they need to tell you that it is or it isn't, like on another machine? Because by virtue of having the exclusive thing not on a game, you go, well, that's on another machine then. Why bother with all that stuff? Just go, these are all on the PlayStation 5. That's all they need to tell you. That's what it's about. It's a PlayStation 5 show. I don't want to know. Oh, it's also on the Switch. I don't care. But tell me about this. I don't know if they need it.
So it does.
We know it's an Xbox show. We know they're all going to be, first on whatever. Or we know it's going to be, if it's got a PlayStation Studios logo, you can pretty much make an educated guess that's going to be it. It's just 3 extra seconds wasted per game, isn't it?
I would agree.
You really are the gaming Tory dad these days.
Don't even with me, Jonathan Green Trousers.
I would agree, except it doesn't need to be a stinger at the front. It could just be text in the bottom left-hand side of the screen. Xbox have kind of pivoted a bit more to that, where it did say underneath where the game title came up, they said, first on Xbox or whatever. It doesn't have to be a stinger in front. It can happen seamlessly during. But the other thing I would say is that I agree. If you see it on a Sony stage, you're going to associate it with Sony. You're going to think, oh, okay, when I next see this game, I'll know I can get it on there. But people are making platform choices at the moment. Not many people are going to have 2 lots of £500 plus a gaming PC to be able to spend come the end of this year. They need to make some decisions.
Not this year either.
Exactly, yeah.
Good point. Good point, Jimny Blue Trousers.
They need to make some decisions, and Sony saying you can only get this here means that's a tick, not just for I associate this game with PlayStation, but I need to have a PlayStation to play this. If you come at it from that point of view of what do I need to get to play these games, Sony ringing the bell of you need a PlayStation to play this game, that puts a 1 in the column of I'm getting a PS5 at the end of this year, not an Xbox Series X. Sony obviously don't feel they need to do that. From a consumer, it helps me mentally tally where I'm at, because finding £500 anywhere this year, any other year, frankly, is a big deal. And that's out of the top of my head figure that I assume these consoles are going to cost. I have no idea, but that's a lot of money for anyone at any time, or for most people at any time, and is certainly a lot this year. And so it's just a little bit weird to think they wouldn't shout about that, to just keep chipping away at people, making sure they know PS5's the one they need to get if they're making a decision. Obviously, if you're someone who's getting a PlayStation 5 anyway because that's the console, or would get a PlayStation 5 anyway because that's the console you want to have, this is just all, here's a cool game you get to play, here's a cool game you get to play, here's a cool game you get to play. But there's a lot of people going to be making decisions, and the more information they have, the easier that decision's going to be to make, hopefully.
Let me just set the tag in my t-shirt. Oh yeah, sorry, that was it.
Yeah.
So let us run towards Herman Holst, put our hands on his beautifully shirted shoulders, vault over them, and go to Returnal, third-person, world-changing shooter from Housemarque, with a little bit of a Prey feel.
Control feel as well, I think.
Yes, what's that other Xbox One game that didn't do particularly well, and was a third-person shooter that looked quite good but didn't exactly kind of come off? The one from early on in the gen, with some of the people from Retro Studios working on it.
Yeah.
Recore, yeah. Gave me a bit of a feel from that. I know that Housemarque said that they were going to veer away from their traditional
arcade
style
because games,
because it wasn't selling. But this seems to be an interesting kind of middle ground. And allegedly they've been working on this for a long time.
Yeah, so they said they were going to give up on they were kind of living game to game a little bit hand to mouth in terms of they were just making enough money to scrape by. But for as loved as the likes of Resogun, and they've had like 3 or 4 games this gen that all got a bit of buzz. They got noticed by people who already knew about Housemarque, but for whatever reason people just didn't pick their games up as a matter of course widely.
What was that last one that got like stellar reviews and just didn't sell?
I'm gonna absolutely shame myself to Leon Cox here. I can't. They had 2 that came out very close to one another that was them like, right, we're done now. Oh, and I'm not going to remember the name.
I've googled it, don't worry. I'll take the hit. Matterfall and Nex Machina.
Yep. Nex Machina was a twin stick shooter, and Matterfall was the one that they made with someone pitched in on story for that one. I never played that one, but I did play Nex Machina, which was really cool.
Yeah, they made Alienation as well. Like they seem to, they make a lot of these lots and lots of shooting at lots and lots of things games.
Yeah,
because Resogun was a banger. Like,
they did Outland as well.
Oh, Outland was brilliant. Interesting. But I thought this looked great. I thought that the main character looked a bit like the actress who plays Brienne of Tarth from Game of Thrones.
Yeah, I didn't think
and
so.
And her name escapes me, but tall, middle-aged, short blonde hair. That's the touchstone I took from that, and it looks interesting. Like, the world changes as you go through it again. Like, it's not a set place. The place alters wildly, it would seem, unless that was a trick of editing. Like, it seems like the whole place changes a lot, and
the voiceover.
Do you think it maybe changes depending on sort of how well you do in the game? I don't know. I quite like the look of this. It looked a little bit left of centre, and knowing that it's Housemarque and their pedigree, you know that it's going to be a good shooter behind that, 100%. The way it was framed was interesting, though.
That was my only. It's not a concern. I agree. The shooting looked like loose, not like it looked free in that kind of arcadey style. It looked like a twin stick shooter done in a third person perspective. It looked fast and like you're spraying bullets everywhere in that kind of twin stick shooter style way, in a really satisfying arcadey way. That I was surprised after the tone and the setting and the build up and the voiceover and the story was all really kind of dramatic and had a serious like sci-fi horror style aspect to it, like Control. I pulled out at that point, and then I saw the shooting and I was like, oh, that's more kind of free and like fun shooty than I expected it to be.
Do you think it's because the bullets were big and purple and
multicolored? Yeah, and firing out a dime a dozen enemies. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Well, it seems like if they've done some sort of quite traditional top-down shooters, that this almost goes back to your SNK, like your Cabals and things like that, and you just again like another old standard of arcade game. Yeah. But yeah, I see what you mean, but it didn't overly put me off, given that it's probably really wild and weird weapons that you're fighting these creatures
It looked
with.
like it, yeah. It looked like
the dichotomy between that. It almost comes back to the Ratchet and Clank thing. Like, give me, don't give me regular rifles to be fighting the undead. Give me something that's absolutely Burktastic that I can wallop.
We're already playing in a weird and wonderful, fantastical sci-fi future where anything is possible and a time loop is happening and the world is changing and mental perception is all over the place. But here's our version of a submachine gun for you. No, come on.
Yeah, it's like
give me a gun that shoots furniture.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you're up against some sort of Bloodborne like gothic horror, and I've got something that burps out bubblegum bullets. Yeah, I'm fine with that. They don't seem to like it in the same way as those dinosaurs didn't like Head and Shoulders in that David Duchovny film, which was very bad.
It's reminiscent of when I played Infamous, and here's the electric pistol, and here's the electric rocket launcher, and here's the electric rifle, and here's your electric grenade. It's like, I don't need bog standard weapons just themed for whatever the power this person has. Is get a little bit creative with that stuff, maybe. I don't know. Like, think outside the box. It doesn't all need to come back to what human weapons are. Yeah, go nuts a bit. And I have trust that Housemarque will do that, and I hope it plays as fun as their games usually do. After Matterfall and Nex Machina, they said, right, okay, we're drawing the line under arcade. It's not working for us. We're not getting the returns and interest and results we need from it. And they switched over and started making a Battle Royale game. And then after they'd been on that for a little while, they just kind of said, yeah, we're done with that. We've moved on to something else. It was hinted it might be for next gen, and that's clearly this. So yeah, as you say, CJ, they've been at it a while. They clearly got backing from PlayStation. It's great to see PlayStation. Something PlayStation I absolutely do cherish them for is standing by devs who make interesting games, whether or not they sell the 13 millions of a Spider-Man, the 20 millions of a Last of Us. Not everything needs to be a banger, sales-wise, to be worthy of continuing to invest in and nurture the likes of a Media Molecule, the likes of a Housemarque here, who aren't first party, but clearly PlayStation have time for and put resources behind, which is really cool. Oh, and the protagonist does not have heterochromia. It looked like they don't. On her right eye, that is an eye that does not have an iris, and that is called aniridia, not heterochromia.
The one thing I did kind of ponder was as to whether, and this is sort of a slight reach, but just give me a time to kind of curve this back around, that as to whether this might be a launch PlayStation Plus game, given that Resogun was such a huge splash last gen. And I know obviously it looks a bit flashier and that sort of stuff, but I wonder if Housemarque maybe made more money from Resogun than they've made from anything afterwards.
Oh, I think undoubtedly.
And as to whether, like, this making a big splash for PS Plus is not only people shelling out for PS Plus, but would actually give something that everybody could play, that sort of puts a new marker down for Housemarque, and that then they can perhaps build on with, like, paid DLC and stuff.
In the manner of the same thing that Microsoft have been saying with Game Pass, where not every game has to be multi-million selling, massive return on investment. In some cases, it has to be enough to hold people's interest, to make them see the value in the service. Pop something like this on PlayStation Plus on or close to launch day. Loads of people will download this and play it. Loads of people will, because it's there, it's free, especially if PlayStation 5 comes with a month's trial of PlayStation Plus, whatever it might be, or just gets people naturally sparking up that subscription. And
if they've then got DLC that's like, for an extra £10-15 you can have new protagonists, like 3 new worlds, like all these extra weapons.
Yeah.
There's going to be a good portion of those people that really enjoyed that, perhaps with like a drift in the amount of games that are knocking about, that will go, I'll have a bit more of that. Absolutely. I just think that could be right place, right time for them.
Yeah.
I think you're both mad. I think there's a better game coming up soon in the show that fits that whole I would say a hell of a lot better. I don't think this is going to be the same. I think the reason Resogun works so well is because it was accessible. Anybody could pick that up, have a go, not necessarily be any good at it, but look at it and go, "Whoa, that was mental." Like,
you don't think people can point a gun at aliens and push forward?
No, I don't think people necessarily. If they're no, listen to me. No, go with me. I don't think if you're
Tory dad
trying to get people sit down, put a controller in someone's hand, play this. Like, you know, when you I've had this with the PlayStation VR, right? Again, this is going to be a long road round, but bear with me. With the PlayStation VR, we have a few games downloaded that we show people. Like, we have the VR Worlds game that comes with it. Astrobot Rescue Mission is it's perfect. And me and Laura both really like Tetris Effect. We think it's beautiful. We like to play it. Now, however, we showed a couple of people Tetris Effect as their first VR game, and my brother-in-law just didn't get it. It was like, I don't see what the point of this is. Like, it's pretty, but why is it VR? I don't get it. Like, when you're showing off, like, look at this, it has to be something that hits you in the face from minute one. I don't know if this game, it looks cool, don't get me wrong, I'll play it, it looks great. I don't know if this is what you give out the show, look at what we can do on PS5. I think there is a better version of, a better idea of what game is coming up in a few games' time that will fit that hole. I don't think it's this. Just because it's Housemarque, I don't think it's this.
If you're referring to what I think you're referring to, I think it's a pack-in.
I'm not. Because I know what you're referring to, and that's not what I'm referring to at all.
Okay, vague. But I still think that this is, if this was on PlayStation Plus, this is not the same as you showing Barry from a few doors down, who doesn't really play video games, what a game can do. I think you're appealing to the people that have just shelled out £600 for a new machine, that that are looking for a dearth of games to play, and that things that would occupy their time and kind of give them a bit of a kick on. I don't think you're looking at sort of necessary accessibility to people that aren't super into games. I think you're trying to snare in that person that's craving stuff and isn't getting it.
Maybe I don't see it as a PS Plus game at first. Maybe a few months down the line, possibly. I just don't see it as the first month. I just can't. Just because it's Housemarque, I just don't see that link this time. It doesn't have that whoa aspect that I think something like this will need. That's the best way I can put it.
Okay. I don't agree, but we'll agree to disagree.
As always.
No, Paddy, the correct answer is I do not agree to disagree.
Damn you, James Carter, and your reasonableness.
James, anything more to add before we move on?
No, that's absolutely everything. Exclusive to PlayStation 5, obviously.
So Sackboy: A Big Adventure, Sumo Digital, and a rather charming Mario-esque sort of Yoshi's Woolly World type little blighter. It's running at 60 frames per second, looks fun. Nice to see Sackboy back. I was never really crazy about those games, but I think he's a good mascot, and I think that I don't think there's going to be a creation tool this time.
No.
But I'd imagine that this is a lot of fun, and again, like a great accessible look for PlayStation to appeal to kids as well as your hardcore gamers.
Yeah, I got huge Super Mario 3D World vibes from this. No obvious creation aspect. I didn't think they showed anything that looked like creation happening. It also didn't have the like 2.5D multiple layers of depth aspect that the original Little Big Planet had, which obviously kind of limited your field of play for the creation and helped structure that. This looked like, here is a full 3D platformer in the mold of Super Mario 3D World, where you are in 2D for sections, but it is expansive. Looks really nice. I think the tiger outfit at the beginning is a sign that the creativity in Little Big Planet is going to be brought to bear in this, from different outfits, different characters, design your own Sackboy style thing. 4-player co-op, it looks like. There were at least 4 players running around on screen a couple of times. Sumo Digital, love to see them get to pick up the Sackboy character after having done a pretty good job by all accounts with Little Big Planet once Media Molecule moved off that. Looks really good fun. Yeah, absolutely.
I would say this takes more of a thing from its design from Tearaway than from Little Big. Like that 3D over the top. Sometimes you're on a fun bit, sometimes you're over here, sometimes you're here. The world's kind of the mouths that were chomping down as he was jumping over them. That's very, very Tearaway. That's what. So that's the kind of the touchstone that I picked up on. You know, it's Little Big Planet, play, create, share without the create or share bit. I wasn't sure about this one. It looks pretty, but I don't know if it looked like a PS5 game. Like I mean, to me and Laura, we were sat there kind of shrugging a little bit at this one, and not because, you know, it's important to have games for everybody. You know, like CJ said, it's a good game for like kids and stuff. Fully agree, completely agree. But like visually, I don't think it looked all that at all. It looked like it could have been a PS3 game.
I think this
didn't impress us at all.
I think this is going to be on PS4 as well, because I think the tech analysis was saying that it was running at that Sumo's that's had this kind of in their back pocket for quite some time.
Yeah, I can see that.
And that it's kind of 1080p, 60 frames per second. So, but I think also going to things like Yoshi's Woolly World and stuff. You look at those on the Yoshi games and the Yarn games on Switch, and they look super beautiful.
Yeah, art style trumps.
And they don't necessarily need to take that sort of welly up. But I'd be super surprised if this wasn't PS4 as well.
No, yeah, but these games, they've always looked, you know, like this. They've always been stitched and plugged and glued together. For me, I think the criticism that people always gave Little Big Planet, that I didn't agree with, but the criticism everyone always gave it, is that the actual platforming mechanics just were a bit floaty. They weren't that sharp. So by taking away the creation and the sharing aspect, can the game survive on its can it you stand by its mechanics? Will they be enough?
But you've got Dreams as well now, so I'd imagine they're leaning into that.
Yeah.
The play creating stuff is all over there, and just to aside, it's weird and brilliant in Dreams. Good lord, just turn it on and just go to the random button a few times. Good lord, so much fun. But like, can this game survive on its own compared to, like, if you've got this is £50 and you've got Ratchet and Clank is £50, I'll buy Ratchet and Clank twice.
I don't think this is going to be £50.
So what I'd
hope not.
What I would say to that, I agree. There was nothing visually in this that screamed next gen like Ratchet and Clank did to me. I absolutely agree. I think it's very harsh to say this looks like a PS3 game. I think it looks really like, I think art style wise, it's obviously sticking to the Sackboy stitched Little Big Planet style art. My hope is that having that art style and having it all as a ready-made campaign by Sumo Digital, who know how to make great fun games, I think they can make the best version of what Little Big Planet should have been to play without having like some of the floaty aspects. Some of the way that the Little Big Planet campaign was designed was the way it was because it needed to be part of this system whereby players could go in and create their own stuff. Like, I'm talking about the 3 or 4 depths planes of play. That all had to be there because it gave a structure for people to be able to make those levels. That was how they made that. It didn't need to be like that from the point of view of producing a platformer. That was just how it ended up working. With this one, I'm hoping Sumo Digital have the freedom, being released from the need to make it a creation tool, to say, let's just make a really good 3D platformer with... I don't know anyone who doesn't think Sackboy's kind of lovable and really cool, whether or not they liked Little Big Planet. The playing of it, the creating in it, whatever. Sackboy has stuck around as a PlayStation mascot because there is a charm to that character. There's a charm to the art style in the world. So if the jump isn't exactly as floaty as the jump was in Little Big Planet, absolutely fine. Like, fine. Make this a really cool 3D platformer that doesn't have the combat and the bells and whistles of next gen that Ratchet has, but just make it a really solid Mario 3D World kind of game with Sackboy in it. Whether that's big enough to warrant being £50, $60, whatever, I'm not that fussed. I'm just really interested to see what a really focused version of Little Big Planet as a Sackboy game could be. That just seems really cool to me. And yeah,
I would say that as well. If you're making this, I think this would probably be around 30 quid. But the thing that I remember from those early games is they must have made a wedge on skins. Because there were Metal Gear Solid skins, there were Final Fantasy skins, there were all that kind of stuff.
There was a Judge Dredd skin.
I'd imagine that's where they'd make their money in this game. Probably more so than the original game, because people are just going to go, yeah, I'm going to... What, they've released a Ratchet and Clank skin? Oh my god,
sure,
look at Sack. Look,
they did.
Look at Sack. Well, yeah, this is it. They've got the chance to do a fun game. I agree with James that Sumo are completely good at sort of doing pulling off like a Mario World type game in this regard, but if they can keep adding in little skins and like daft promotions and stuff, that's where this game will kind of have a tail.
I think the difficulty obviously there is if it's say a 5-6 hour campaign and 5 worlds like a Mario game would be, whatever, that kind of thing. In order to keep selling skins, you kind of need replayability there. So what I would love to see here is, okay, it's a £30 game, but we're going to add new worlds. You can pay for skins, you can get skins, whatever it might be. Add new stuff into that, make it a platform to build on so that Sumo can keep creating. I don't know if that's the way they'll go, but my concern would be how long after I've already played through the game once am I going to keep buying a tiger skin and a lion skin and a whatever else. That tiger outfit at the beginning, by the way, fantastic. Absolutely loved that reveal of Sackboy in a tiger suit just cause.
Marvellous. Let us continue. So, Destruction All-Stars, which seemed to be a new version of Destruction Derby meets that Rocket League game.
Yeah, for sure.
You seem to be able to smash all the cars up and then run around the cars and kick the cars and kick the people from the cars. I thought this looked very Wipeout. I thought he was going into Wipeout before I saw the cars going, and I made the connection. But it looked like a laugh. It looked a little bit different. It seemed to be very PS1 to me. I thought the trailer gave a good account of itself, not taking itself seriously. It looks fun. It looks off the wall, and it looks like somebody's not necessarily going for realism. They're just going for like a mad mash about with your mates, and perhaps like a touch of skill, and maybe if you're looking at the wider scope of things, maybe trying to snare in those Fortnite players as well as your Wipeout and your Destruction Derby type folks, and the Rocket League thing maybe. I don't know. I thought it didn't seem to be having an eye on all of those things, and there are some very talented developers behind it.
Yeah, I wrote Overwatch meets Rocket League. The character design sort of screamed, big, bold, bright colours, distinct kind of feel to each of the characters. I also thought Onrush was a good touchstone for the kind of the bright, bold, neon kind of car combat sort of feel. But yeah, this looked like good fun to me. Destruction Derby game, but then you see people out running about and you think, oh, so it does matter what my character looks like, so I'm going to get interested in this game. Screamed skins and costumes for characters to me. Absolutely screamed this. I
kind of like the stuff running outside of the cars, because it just seemed like maybe there was a level where it's like, some people were in cars, some were not. You were really agile, but I can imagine there being like a real skill level of dodging the cars, or maybe getting the cars to crash into one another, or into like the environment and stuff. Maybe even like a degree of stealth and hiding from the cars and jumping on top of them. And there's a lot of room for
what that
giddiness.
was is once your car gets destroyed, you are put out into the arena on foot, Titanfall style. You have to do something. You have to take out another car. You have to just survive long enough until you get a respawn car, and then you can get back into the car. That seemed like a really cool thing.
Or nick theirs, I guess.
Yeah,
Or if you see death coming, can you jump out of the car?
Yeah, and I'd imagine there is a mode though where it's going to be people versus cars, or maybe if somebody's got a car, the way that you're able to use that car yourself is by leaving your car and stealing theirs. Or
Yeah,
do you know what I
sure,
mean? Or if your
absolutely,
car
yeah.
gets destroyed, like climbing into those and sort of Halo sort of ghost style, just like booting somebody off. And sort of, or like GTA, like climbing into their car, and because there was the bit where somebody was gripping onto the top of the car, which I thought was like, that must be maddening. If
20
like
people, one car, king of the wheel.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
But there's so
the
many
possibilities.
There's so many varieties of gameplay mode there as well, and I quite like that you've got that Rocket League type sort of arena that you could maybe just drive
the
off
physics
the
and the
walls
speed
and
of
then
it, yeah,
spin and
absolutely.
try and shake somebody off. It looked like there were loads of possibilities. It looked bonkers, but it looked like somebody that didn't have an eye on let's do all the things that are possible. And I still keep thinking about that bloke who's sort of showing off one of his guns near the start and just like, yeah. But yeah, Paddy.
Yeah, much like we've all written down our own mix of two games, Fortnite but Twisted Metal
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
what I wrote down, which is the same thing as we all did.
Yeah, Twisted Metal's a good call.
And much like you, James, my other main note I wrote down was this game's going to have purchasable emotes.
Yep.
Oh, there's going to
Dances
be
and skins
microtransactions,
and car decorations,
skins,
and absolutely,
car decks, and little bubbles that go on top of your car, and little effects at the back of your
Absolutely.
car, and special outfits, and special voice lines, and special spray can tags. Probably, it looks like the kind of game where you could get out of the car and spray up someone's car or wall. Do you know what though? That's fine, because this looks mental, and as I alluded to earlier, I think this is the game that you put on PlayStation Plus on day one. You get every single person that buys that machine just in a car, just exploding off of each other. It looks fun, it looks stupid, you can jump in, it looks like you can jump in with your friends, have a really good time. Like I'm not for these kind of like Battle Royale type games, your Fortnites and your PUBGs and all that sort of stuff. I don't really get them. I would play that.
Yeah.
That looked like it was fun. It looked like team-based. It just looked like chaos. And I think if you're going to plug anything in that people can just sit down, grab a mate, have a go at this is a laugh, it's Rocket League. I'm glad you said Rocket League earlier, because I hadn't made that connection.
Oh, yeah.
Because Rocket League set that world on fire when that turned up on Plus.
But in the
Rocket
same
League took the
in the
world
same
over.
ways, Resogun has that resonance back on PS Plus. Rocket League has that resonance back on PS Plus. So I could see both of those, either of them being that day one splash, and you're doing a good pull with this being a PlayStation Plus, or even like, I mean, in that regard, you could even go
just make it free to play,
and then
just make it free to play.
Give people sort of PlayStation Plus. You know, like they do the special enhancements, or if you're a PS Plus. In the PS Plus subscriber, or maybe doing like there's an extra pack and you get it's going to be £10, but you get it for $5.49 on PlayStation Plus. Again, that's how they make their money, and the thing that Rocket League built up so well was that sense of community, because everybody had a go at it when there was a point where there was a dearth of content, I guess.
Yeah, can you go online? Have you got Plus? You've got Rocket League.
Yeah,
100%.
Brilliant. And that game still is huge. Like, people still play it all the time. Like, that game bouncing. If anything, from this show kicked out as you're going to have this on your machine day one, I know that there is actually one coming up that everyone will have on the machine day one. That's not the one I pulled. Was this? I think this is going to be with the right launch. I think this is going to be a laugh. I think maybe a month in, it's going to be interminably terrible, because people will be either good at it or they will be good at being terrible at it, and it will be a hard. You know how a few weeks in the meta descends, and then it's just impossible to play with anyone that's not your friends. But the first month, I reckon, is going to be a massive laugh.
But I think that's where matchmaking is important, and you know, it monitoring like the skill levels, and the same ways like the people that are super amazing at it most of them won't want to sort of fight your casual goons. They want to have a go at the super top people. So if they manage that well,
can that be our clan name?
The super top people. It's
Casual
very
goons,
good.
The casual goons.
Oh, I quite like the super top people. That's really good, especially if we were rubbish.
Best players.
The other way to
through.
avoid people having a massively bad time up against the people who've been playing this for like a couple of months straight, 2 months in, is by making sure that as many people as possible have this game. Rocket League, to my understanding, is still easy to pick up and play and have fun with, because so many people have that game that there's always people playing it who are new players or just not great at the game or just not playing it seriously. So do that with this, especially like Battle Royale sounds like a mode that this could incorporate, but I don't want 2 people driving around that entire arena just trying to take one another out. That sounds rubbish. Like, keep as many people in there as possible, to make sure that everyone's in there having fun all the time. That way, if there's one person in there who is absolutely great, there's the rest of the people in there may be more on your kind of level, and have modes in there that don't allow teams. Make the matchmaking
Also,
completely
it's
random,
not,
so that no one can go in there with a team of 4 who are always together and always just like laser focused on taking everyone else down.
I could see, if we are exploring it this way, that it could turn into a very watchable esport as well.
Oh, yeah.
But even if the people are maybe not so good at it, if they can still be picking up like new car skins and new outfits and new helmets and stuff, that's cool. The only thing I really hope they avoid is loot boxes. I think that
I
just
hope loot boxes are done in this case. Yeah, charge for skins out the absolute wazoo. Pay artists, pay a lot of artists to keep generating that stuff. Keep having a rotating store of loads of different skins, loads of different car specializations, all that stuff, and just make sure people can go and buy for 50p, a pound, £2, whatever, new skins and new stuff. Yeah, don't randomize this. You don't need to be that anymore.
Nah. Be honest, be upfront, be in all things, be like Warframe. You can buy this for this much money. Cool. Done. Hi everyone, we decided to take a break here, so thank you for listening to part 1 of our E3 Sony Spectacular. Join us on part 2 coming very, very soon. Bye!